ESPN and a proud graduate of Wheaton College, class of 2002. At Wheaton, she played field hockey and worked in the sports information department. She went on to earn her master's in broadcast journalism from Emerson College in Boston. Beginning her professional career on ESPN, SportsCenter and College GameDay, she quickly excelled in covering breaking news in the field. She spent 14 years on the front lines, covering some of the biggest news and features in the NFL, NBA, the Women's Final Four, NASCAR, and in events including 6 Super Bowls, the Wells Report, 11 NBA Finals, the NBA Bubble, and the Boston Marathon bombing. Now, with a move into the executive ranks, she is back in the studio as a coordinating producer of the network's flagship program, the 11 p.m. SportsCenter. She's back on campus today to share her story and to answer your questions about careers in broadcast media. Please join me in welcoming Andrea Pelkey. And now I would like to turn it over to Alan Wickstrom, our Director of Athletics, Sports Information. Sorry.
So Andrea, I just should let everybody, we have a lot of student athletes in the room right now. Okay. So you all should know, Andrea played on the field hockey team from 1998 to 2001. She graduated in 2002. I played for Coach Betty Ann Giles, is that right? Yeah. Andrea was a captain. She started every game as a sophomore and a junior, and played most of the season as a senior, and was also a member of the WAMs. So, pretty impressive stuff just as a student athlete here at Wheaton. But, you've done a lot of other things since you were here. And can you talk about how you became interested in sports media, given that you were a sociology major at Wheaton?
Yes, hi everybody, absolutely. It was, actually we were talking about it at lunch today. I think my goal was never to go into sports. My goal was definitely, part of the reason I chose Wheaton is it had the dual degree program at Emerson, so it allowed me to get a master's 1 year after graduating from Wheaton. And I know there are a lot of other options now, but at the time there weren't. So I thought I was going to go be a war correspondent for CNN overseas. I thought it was going to be a way to get me to travel and see other parts of the world. But when I got into my classes at Emerson, I realized very quickly that not everybody had the same sports vocabulary I had. I kind of took that for granted because I grew up in a family where sports are what we did as a pastime. So I had to make a decision. Was I going to pursue sports, or was I going to make a pivot? Well, it kind of just happened, really. Sports just happened because they were like, oh, just give sports section to Andrea, she'll do that, and then she'll go cover, this story over here on this side of Boston. And I did. So I think it just came about naturally. It wasn't ever not intentional, but that's how things usually happen in life.
And now you're a coordinating producer at ESPN. You're doing the 11 p.m. SportsCenter, which is the SportsCenter that we all grew up with. And so many legends emerge from there. But you don't just wake up one day and become the coordinating producer for that SportsCenter.
Yeah.
So can you talk about your journey to get there?
Absolutely, yeah. I think, as Brooke mentioned, I started as a PA, which is an entry level, and I welcome you all to apply if you're interested, because we are looking for awesome PAs now.
And what does PA stand?
Production assistant. So when you come in, and if you're coming into the SportsCenter world, that means you get assigned a game every night, and you log the game, and you choose the plays that you're going to see your highlight that night, and it airs that night on SportsCenter. And you write what we call a shot sheet for our anchors to read on air. It's kind of amazing that entry level, right? That like your first week at ESPN, that's what you could be doing. It's amazing. That's how I started. And then I started to specialize a little bit in basketball. Basketball was the sport. New England, 80s baby, New England, Larry Bird, right? I mean, come on. We got really lucky. So basketball was where I went on game day. got to start traveling around the country, and that's when I understood, like, okay, the real part of sports are in these pockets of the country, and I wanted to start traveling around and seeing it. Then we got to the point where my company got the broadcast partnership with NASCAR. And you're thinking, basketball to NASCAR? That is such a turn. No pun intended. So I made flashcards for myself, like remedial 101, old school index cards, 24 car Jeff Gordon DuPont. Literally, learn every single driver and the sponsorship in the series, because I didn't know much about the sport, so I sat in a lot of rooms and listened to some really smart people and just picked up as much as I could on the sport. The reporting and the journalism skills were set. You can replace any topic with that. So if I'm covering a court case, it's the same as if I'm covering a NASCAR race. The skills transfer. So I went out in the field and I traveled to, it was 38 races at the time, so I did about 35, 38 a year, which is a lot of travel. If you think about it, it's like one a week. And I just got information, and I got knowledge, and I got experience, and there's really nothing that could replace that experience. I had cars going into the stands, so we had to make sure the fans are okay, and those type of moments that are urgent moments. It's amazing to see the teamwork, and being out in the field is where I learned that television is, or I should say all media now, but at the time, television is the ultimate team sport. You are not putting a broadcast together unless every single person is part of it. It's so important. So those skill sets that you're going through today, I see a lot of people are probably going to practice after this. Those are going to translate for you in your careers, regardless of if it's media or not. But you're always going to have to work with people, regardless. And then after I did some reps in NASCAR, I moved up to Boston. And I started being the Boston bureau producer, which was a dream. That was my goal. And I started covering mostly NFL. So that would be the Patriots, what I call the second dynasty. The second three that they got, and NBA. Those are my two big sports I like to cover. I covered a lot of things, but it's really, again, about getting reps and being able to handle breaking news. For some reason, I'm one of those weird people that when there is no stress, I create it to function better. There's a lot of people like that in the room. But when there is stress, I drop super low and can function on a level that most people function in a no stress zone. So that's how it happened. And then the time came for me to move back into the studio. So I'm back in Connecticut every day, go into the office and build a show every day.
Now, talk about what that means. What does it mean to build a show every night?
Well, I work with first my producers, Abby and Evan are now doing the 11 o'clock. I have a great partner, John, because I can't work 7 days a week. I actually work 7 days a week, but so the four of us build a plan together, what we call the rundown, and we go through stories, news stories. But what I love about the time slot we're in is that it's the first show when the game's end. So that means it's new news. It's the newest, it's the freshest. We haven't seen it yet. These highlights are hot off the presses. I love that energy of, do we have that? Do we have that? Do we have that yet? There are a lot of times where we can't, we're wanting something so quickly, they're playing it out of the edit room. So that would be like us sitting up here having this conversation, we're on the set, right? And then over there, Jill is going to push play on the highlight and just step away from the machine and let it go. Because the second you breathe on that machine, it may stop running and then you go to black on air, which is like, it's like black on air is like flatlining in ER. You just don't want that happen. So that's how we do the show.
Now, when you're doing the show, obviously, there's all kinds of things going on. What are you exactly doing during the show as a coordinating producer?
Okay, so the producer, that would be Abby or Evan, are giving traffic, what we call traffic, right? They're giving line-by-line changes to the director or the anchors that you see on air. My job is to make sure that all of the content, editorial decision-making is on point. Are we reporting the right things? Have we checked everything with the news desk sourcing? All accurate information. I was taught by some fabulous investigative journalists out in the field early on that you're only as good as your last report. So being first doesn't really matter anymore because things like Twitter and, I'm sorry, X, my apologies, I'm still getting used to that, happen. So everybody, that's a flood of information, right? My job is to make sure everything that we are saying is factually and editorially correct.
Now, you're a coordinating producer, but there are different types of producers within the field. There's segment producers, there's line producers. Can you talk a little bit about what each of those does?
Sure,
And how much experience did you get along the way in becoming a coordinating producer?
Let's start with like production assistant would be where you would start, and then you would go to what we call an associate producer. And those are people who would do higher end edits, like if you have like sound from a player or an athlete or a coach. It's football season, so the coach sounds fabulous right now. Good stuff. They put together those type of elements. And then you would do a step up, what we would call a segment producer, or at ESPN, we have different names for things. So a segment producer is like a content producer there. And basically they would do segments. So if you see Adam Schefter, he's our reporter for NFL, a lot of breaking news. They would work with Adam to build the questions and the B-roll that you see when he's speaking and what the graphics are going to look like and what they're going to say. So they would work individually with Adam on his segment. And then a line producer or the show producer, we call it at ESPN, that would be the person who builds the line-by-line items that the entire team follows. And then we have a few other specialty items like teases and bumps. So the tease is the stereotypical, this is SportsCenter, and you have the 3 things that are coming up. And then the fun montage. So if you guys have a great video for the montage, you can send it to me and we'll put it in there. And then we have them, and then before you go to commercial break, we have what's called a bump, and that's what's coming after the break. And then, so those are different types of producers as well. And then we also have field producers, or at ESPN we call them bureau producers. That's what I was before this job. That means just you go out to events and with a reporter and you report back what's going on. A lot of video, a lot of sound, a lot of, in the moment they are covering everything. And then the next level would be the coordinating producer, or a lot of places call it the executive producer. Those are the same type of thing. And then after that, you move into like vice presidential level.
So I was a communications major, and a lot of the lingo that you're using, I know,
Yes.
but I'm not sure that they know. PA, we've already talked
Yes.
about. Sound, can you explain what sound is?
Sound is a person talking. So it would be Mac Jones talking about what they look like on the field. So it's usually not live, but we can go to live press conferences. So it's just a human talking on tape.
And then when you say B-roll, what are you talking about?
Yes, okay, so back in the day, before there was digital, it's A-roll and B-roll. A-roll would be your sound, which we just call it sound now. And B-roll is when you still hear that person talking, and there's video over it. That's called the B-roll. And those names used to come from actually literally cutting the film and splicing it together. Now it's digital editing, so we still call it that though, even though it's not technically what it is.
And a lot of times B-roll will just consist of just getting random video shots from a location and then splicing it into your production.
Yes, but hopefully
Or
not.
your package,
Yeah,
right?
well, okay, that's the other thing too. Vocabulary is different wherever you go, but hopefully it's not random. Hopefully it's very pointed and it matches what the person's talking about. That's always the goal, right? We want, that doesn't happen by accident, right? Like sometimes you get lucky though, right? Like you get lucky and it matches perfectly. But yeah, we send people out for pointed specific video. Let's say somebody has an injury, like Joe Burrow, how does his knee look? That's his knee, right? Yeah, his knee. There's so many athletes that keep them all straight. So, yeah, so we'll say, hey, can you please shoot the B-roll of how he's moving and cutting? And then it's in the actual side.
Now, I'm sure when you got into the profession in the field, you had some preconceived notions about what it would be like. Now that you've been in it for a long time, what would you say has been the thing that surprised you the most, or something that you didn't expect within the profession?
That's a good one. Let's see. I think one of the things that I didn't expect was how long it actually takes to put together a show or a segment or a piece or like, for example, when I would go cover a game in Foxborough, I just use that example because it's right over here, but and you would see a live shot at 6 o'clock at night. I got there at 4:30 in the morning for that. So it's not short days. It's not, but that's sports for you, right? Like, when does sports happen? Nights, weekends, and holidays. Like, that's when you watch sports, that's when you play sports, for the most part. So that doesn't change. So as long as you set your mind to that expectation, you're going to be fine. But ESPN was the original 24-hour network, right? So that's when the sports happen, so that's when we report on them. And I just didn't realize it took that much time to build a show. So for example, let's say I wanted to go to o'clock. The producer and I are in the studio at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's, and then we're out at midnight. That's pretty normal, a normal day.
And can you talk about work-life balance? I mean, it's a big topic nowadays.
I can talk about it. I'm not good at it. I'm not the poster child for this. I can tell you all the things that I've done, and you can. Here's what I will say about it. I have had to make. You have to make decisions. Am I going to go to the Super Bowl or my cousin's wedding? Yes, you have to make that decision. And as long as you can look at yourself in the mirror every day with the decision you've made, that's all I can hope for you. They're tough. They're not easy. Now, if that's my sister's wedding, I'm absolutely going to it, right? That's an easy choice. But I did have a conversation with my sister, and she was not going to get married in February, so that's good. There are points of your career where you're going to know if it's okay. I had a changing moment in my approach to my career when my older sister was going to do a mission trip in Africa, and she said, hey, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Do you want to go on a safari in Serengeti with me? And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have this chance ever again. But it was in October. And what's going on in October, everybody? Football, World Series, like it's basketball's getting ready to start. Like, there's a lot going on. And I remember going to my boss's office. I drove down to Boston, Connecticut, and I said, I can't believe I'm asking you this right now, but can I have 2 weeks in October off? And he was shocked, because it's just not something that's done. But I will tell you this, I will remember that trip forever, but I will not remember what those 2 football games were that I missed. And that, you'll know, your gut will tell you what the right thing to do is, and I think I was at a point in my career at that time where I felt like I was comfortable asking for that, because I put the work in before.
Now, what does it mean for you to succeed in a profession that's traditionally been male-oriented, and how do you think that's changed that dynamic over the years?
think, I'll start with how I have dealt with it, but I'm going to say this. It didn't occur to me to mind, which is a very archaic way of thinking about it. It was what we were taught at that time in society, was to just put your head down and go. With all the noise over here and noise over here, a lot of athletes in the room, you know, to like block out the noise, right? That's what we were taught. Now, my recommendation for people is to talk about it. To talk about communication and how it's different between people. I don't think you should necessarily have to do what I did and what my predecessors had to do. One of the people I talk to about this a lot is Jackie McMullen. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but she is a longtime writer for the Boston Globe and worked for us as well. And she and I spoke in depth about this, about it's the cycle is this. You get into it and you're like, oh man, I'm one-of-one. Okay. There are a lot of locker rooms that I was in and I was one-of-one. And so I just kind of, and were there things along the way that were difficult? Absolutely. But once you prove yourself to other people, and this is where I say don't do what I did, because the world is a different place than it was when I first started this. You don't have to prove yourself to anybody else. You should prove yourself to yourself and your company and your bosses. Now I think it's okay to talk about it, and you should talk about it. When you're having a moment where somebody uses a word that, you're like, hang on, why did you just describe me that way when you would describe my male counterpart as stern, but I'm pushy? Like, it's okay to point that out, because they might not even realize it, but awareness is how we're going to get through this. And so I encourage you all to talk about it, because I think it's the place to live now, and that's where we are now in society.
In this business, you form a lot of relationships with on-air talent and your colleagues, obviously, but you also form relationships with the athletes. Can you talk a little bit about what those relationships look like and just kind of what they mean to you, I guess, within the working environment?
Yeah, I think what's super cool is the people that you would think would be the athletes. I will start with them. I think it's one of the same. Any on-air personality, I think you can put athletes in that as well. Remember, that's one person. Who they are when the camera's not rolling is actually the one important person. Because a lot of people, and this any psychology majors in here, yeah, you create a facade, right? Like you create something to protect yourself from, because they know athlete X, but they don't know Johnny Smith, right? Those are two different people for the most part. And I think the athletes that I have the best relationships with are the ones who understand that I also have a job to do. And the quicker and the smoother that they can answer any questions in a lot of media time, rather than fighting it, because I'm not sure if everybody is aware of this, those are contractually mandated media times. So that's part of their contract, is to do those media times. The athletes who can compartmentalize and say, okay, this from 1 to 2 today, this is when I have to talk to the media. From 2 to 3, this is practice. From 5 to 7:30, this is film, right? Like they can compartmentalize and focus on what they're doing in that window. Those are the athletes that I think I have the best relationship with, and I have to respect that window of time that they are available to me. On-air talent is the same way. I think when you're in it, it's no different than the person who grew up down the street from you, right? Like that person could be an on-air talent, 10 years from now. Who knows, right? It's the working relationship and the respect between two people and knowing, you know, that they have a job to do and you have a job to do, so let's do it together.
Now, it's pretty common, or it's become a lot more common, for professional athletes to move into the studio after their careers are over. But they're not always prime time ready when they get into the studio. How much of coaching up do you need to do in order to get them ready to go?
Oh, absolutely. I think one thing that former athletes come into studio or on site with is the work ethic. Like, you have it, it's built in. You don't have to explain to them how to watch film or how to break down a play. Like, they know the sport that they're there for, which is great, because some other times we'll have people who are professional broadcasters who don't know the sport, right? So that's a built-in. A lot of it is like delivery is slowing down, or if there's a regional accent, we try to have them slow down even more, because regional accents tend not to, when you slow down, you hear them less, only for comprehension's sake. And I'm trying to think of like other things of, oh, I know things like one thing that COVID taught us is when you're on camera, this is a good one. It's different because I'm talking to you like this, right? When you're looking down the barrel of a camera, right, and you can't see the person you're talking to. So if you're on Zoom, like people's eyes are wandering, right? Like you guys probably all went through classes and sessions. But when someone's in your ear talking to you, you're just looking around, or like, I'm on the radio, no one can see me, but the audience can see, so you're always like, I remember, like if you're the camera and I'm out there, I would always, let's say you're the one who's talking, right? And I would say, right here, like look right here, because you have to remind people to look into the camera, which is so weird, right? Like nobody does that unless you're taking a still, but when it's moving video, you don't ever look down the barrel of the camera. So we have to do a lot of training on that. A lot of television words, like you were just trying to pull words out of me too, they don't necessarily know the vernacular, right? That's something else we have to teach, but I mean, it's you know, it's simple. It's a simple transition for a lot of people because they already know how to work.
Now, do you have any stories on the record that you can share about anything in the business or with a professional athlete or anything like that?
I won't give any names.
Yeah, that's a good way to start.
But really early on, I noticed it was a NASCAR event, and there was rumors about a driver from IndyCar coming over to NASCAR, and one of the current drivers was going to be a car owner for the car that driver was going to be in. So the system there is like you, after practice, you meet at the back of their hauler to interview them, because there's not locker rooms, or there's not press rooms or anything like that out on NASCAR track. So I went over there and kind of in my head, how am I going to ask this question? This person is going to be combative. They want to break the news themselves. They don't want us to break it. And so I asked the driver, and I said to him, could you substantiate the report that this driver was going to race for you next year? And he just unloaded, just absolutely unloaded on me. And I'm like, okay, stop right there. But he did it to the point where I thought it was disrespectful. And so I didn't ask another question, and let other people ask their questions, and I stayed right there at the end of the interview. And I looked at his PR person, and I said, and he goes, so you wanted me to go in the hauler and have a conversation with him? And I said, okay. So I marched in there, and I don't know what came over me. I said nothing, and he goes, you need to ask a better question than that. And I just let him unload, because like, that's what, he was mad because I asked him a question that he couldn't get out of. We didn't give him an exit ramp. That's what we call it. And so I stood there and I said, am I going to let this person talk to me like this? So I just let him get it all out, and I finally said his name, and I said, my parents and I spent $250,000 on my education so that I could ask you a question you couldn't find a way out of. And he goes, where did you go to school? And I said, Wheaton. So, yeah, I guess that's one where you do have those conversations with athletes.
Well, that segues into my next question, or as we would call it, the next segment, right? Circling back to Wheaton.
Yes.
Do you remember why you chose to go to Wheaton?
I do. I think part of it was the dual degree program, which was great. And one of the things I was very fearful of was going away to school, because I'm from the middle of Maine. And I was really leaning heavily in on field hockey to help me not be homesick. It was a fall sport. I loved it. I excelled at it up at home, and there had been a trend up where I was from that a lot of students went away to school and then the first semester and then never came back. And I didn't want that to happen to me. I wanted it to stick. So I needed field hockey to not exit. It was the thing I always did in the fall. So I needed to make some consistency between home and what was going to be the beginning of my new journey. So I used field hockey to help me at school.
And can you think of specific things that you took away from Wheaton that helped you succeed after you graduated?
Absolutely. I think people ask like what the difference between Wheaton and Emerson were for me, and I think that Wheaton is where I learned how to think. There's a lot of analytical thinking that goes on in, I say these walls, but this campus. Emerson for me was nuts and bolts, learning how to shoot video and direct and produce and all of those like elements, like actual skills. But the analytical thinking and the problem solving is what I learned at Wheaton.
And can you talk a little bit about the camaraderie that you still feel with your former teammates so many years after you graduated from Wheaton?
Yeah, absolutely. I am still quite close with my roommates, with my teammates, Sarah Hotchkiss and Beth Pine, midfielder and goalkeeper. We probably text and talk once a week still, 20-something years later. So yeah, they stick. For the first 10 years or so, this is funny, we would be on a group chat with our teammates on the first day of preseason, and we would congratulate each other for not having to run the 2 mile. that was what we did for the first 10 years. It was great. But Sarah and Beth and I, the day of graduation, made a pact that when we turned 30, we were going to take a trip to Italy together. I'm happy to say we did that. And ever since, Beth and I pick a European country every spring to land in and drive around in for 10 days and then fly back home. So that's those are real life friendships that stick forever. And I tell people my high school friends are my friends because they were there. My college friends are my friends because they were meant to be my friends. We were meant to find each other. So, and I intertwine friends and teammates because for me that's what they were.
I'm going to use this as a shameless commercial.
Okay.
But can you talk about your experience working in sports information at Wheaton?
Yes, absolutely. So it's super fun. I worked for a gentleman, and his name is Scott Dietz. He's now at Babson. I will say, he does send me submissions for top plays every night. So if you guys have top plays, you know where to find me. Because Endicott was on, was that Wednesday? I had the show on Wednesday night, and it really hurt my heart to put Endicott on there. I haven't put Wheaton on there yet. So keep an eye out for those. So I would play in the field hockey game, and then I would hustle, because we played at Clark then, so we didn't have the nice awesome track and field, so congratulations, it's awesome. And I hustle back over and I would write the release for field hockey and send it to the Globe, the Herald, everybody that, and it's a little different now, because now you just put it on the website and the wires can pick up off that. But that was
Because they're all reading our website.
well, I mean, well, distribution, right?
Right.
And then I was very close with another manager. His name is Dennis Meehan. He was the manager of the baseball team. He would want to go out with the guys after. He's like, hey, can you just write my baseball for me? And I was like, okay, fine, I'm here already. So I would write that. And so Scott, I still to this day credit Scott as the reason that I am able to write sports. He made me a better writer, and it wasn't a class. It was working. And it's real life, right? Like, it's what we do every day now, and I got a jump start here.
That's great. I think at this time we want to open it
Yes,
up to the
please.
room. Do we have any questions from anyone in the room?
Would you say it's necessary, like in this day and age, I guess, to get a master's to be able to like work as a PA in like any of the like networks, I guess?
No, absolutely not. I don't think it is. I think it's more, for me at the time, life's about timing, right? Timing-wise, when I was coming out of Wheaton, we didn't have a lot of media here. We didn't have that major, which is why I was sociology. That I loved it. I just loved asking questions and like trying to understand themes and communication among groups of people. But also the environment in the market was not hiring, right? So it made sense for me to continue school. But you absolutely do not need to have a master's to start as a PA.
Can you talk a little bit about how, if they were interested in getting into the field, how they might go about doing that?
Yeah, so we had this thing, well, I can talk about it for ESPN, I can't talk about it for like other networks. I'm not exactly sure how their functionality is, but we have a program called ESPN Next, and that will be how you start and you get into the company that way, and you go through the process, and it's a 2-year process to get into the next level. Actually, I think I have to drop to 18 months now. We just revamped it, so they're very good on social media, and I think that's the reason everybody in this room is that and not traditional resumes and interviews that way. So definitely go on and look for ESPN Next is what you should look for. And you can get into a lot of different departments, whether it's event, studio production, marketing. They have all of the departments of a multimedia company on there as an option.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else? Any other questions?
What's your favorite field hockey memory or your best concert?
From here?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. The one I want to say I'm not going to because Leah Ferrullo is from the north end of Boston and she let someone from Bridgewater know that. Oh, I know, Mel Kilsey. I was playing center back and she was playing right back. And she got hit in the face with a stick. It was not great. And coach was yelling. And, it was Coach Bagley at the time. That was after Coach Giles left. And Mel, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, hang on, because the plate was not dead yet. And she pulled a mouth guard out and like 4 teeth came with it. And she's like, okay. And then she just opens her and then she takes the mouthful of lead and just spits it out. And she's like, shoves the mouth guard back in. She's like, I'm good. And then she just goes back out to play. Obviously, they called it, but that's what I love Mel's disposition was like, we got to get like, let's go. Like, I'm on the other team now. Like, great.
So I have 2 questions connected to that. One, is it a home game?
It was a home game.
And 2, what did Greg do when it happened?
Greg wasn't there. It was Christy. It was one of his assistants at the time. Mel wanted to keep playing, but they made her go to the death bench.
What skills or qualities did you develop as a student athlete at Wheaton, and which of those do you find yourself using every day in your career now?
Like I said, the critical thinking, I think, and the problem solving, I think it's about the willingness to do whatever it took, whether that's long hours or weird assignments. Like we talked about crawling through the grass to plug the blue cord into the red cord and popping up on TV 15 seconds before, like those type of, until I got out into the workforce, I didn't realize that not everybody had that. And I think being on a team and doing whatever it took to help the team win helps me do that. Because, like, I had like a dress on in the middle of South Florida and crawling in the grass to try to find these cords that I technically don't know what they do. That would not come from anything other than me. Like, you know, like, it's kind of pretty and it's kind of cool, right? That's what I would say the drive comes from.
What was your experience, or what is your experience, like, I feel like I mentioned in your like, introduction that you covered Boston Marathon bombing.
Yes.
So, like, what is your experience, like, or, like, how does it feel, like, when sports go back, like, covering graduation?
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. That one actually, so it's almost like you have to be ready at that particular job. You're ready at all times, right? So I lived 2 blocks from the finish line. I just got back from the gym. It's a kind of interesting story. So I don't know if you guys remember. You know the guy who is in the dugout for Red Sox games, a police officer, and he's the one who his arms were like this. Yeah, he also is the guy stationed at the corner of Boylston and Dartmouth. So that's like right by the finish line of the Boston Marathon. So he had just let me sneak through because I was at the gym. It was a random off day. And I had snuck through and I just got back into my apartment and I was like, what was that voice? And then I looked out the window and I saw the puff of smoke for the first one. And then, I saw the puff of smoke and then all of a sudden there were like 300 people just racing toward my house. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I was very, very confused. And then I heard and saw the second one go off. And it was, okay. And I remember because I'm one of those weird people who likes to ask my coworkers, who all of them had so much more experience than I did. And I was just like, it's fun. Like, tell me a story about when you covered this hurricane. Tell me a story when you covered this in Beirut, like, because they all had that news experience and I didn't have it. And I'm so glad I did because I always told myself, I don't care what it is, I'm never going to put myself in harm's way for this. But I'm going to tell you, never say never, because I didn't think I was going to be that person until the time came. So I called the home office and I said, guys, something is going on. They're like, no, it's fine. There's, you know, and I said, no, I'm telling you, like, the elites just crossed like 2 hours ago. This is nothing. And so I grabbed my camera and we had like small cameras at the time. I ran into it. I never would recommend doing that to anybody, but I did run into it. To just try to like do anything I could do. And that changed everything. So work got a hold of me finally because, you know, cell service was really, really bad then. And I think I mentioned at the beginning, like when there is no stress, I create it to function, and this was very stressful, and I dropped to that really low concentrated area, and just started interviewing people. Like, what did you see? You know, and this, and like just trying to get information and get sound to show the world like what was actually happening there, because I was in the zone that they shut down because I just lived there, so I was in the zone. And then they had we had satellite trucks then. Now we don't have, we have other transmission devices now, but at the time we were still on satellite trucks. And they asked the satellite trucks to park a certain place. I said, no, absolutely not. We're coming in from the middle, not from the end. So I parked my satellite truck on Comm Ave in the mall area rather than at the end of Boylston shooting back up because you can't see anything there. And then I distinctly remember that night, Steve Levy drove up from Boston, from Bristol, because he was doing SportsCenter then. He was my reporter, and we worked through the night, and then the next morning, the next day, and finally about 4 days later, I got some sleep. And then that was the lockdown, right? That was when they locked everybody down, and I was in the zone, and they said, I need you to meet Jeremy Schaap, who's one of our reporters. I need you to meet Jeremy Schaap at Fenway. I was like, guys, I can't go anywhere. Like, we're in lockdown. They're like, just do it. So I got my car and I drove to Fenway with my camera because Jeremy was going to file a report. And I pull up to a light on Beacon because I'm going toward Fenway Park, and I can see the Sigma sign, I can see everything. And there was a SWAT vehicle that came up and pulled up beside me, and a guy up in the middle, like the top popped open, and he was like roll the window down. I need to have a conversation with you. And he said, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? I'm like, hi. I'm Andrea, I'm with ESPN. I need to go to Fenway to do a live shot. He goes, come on, we'll take you. So, like, in that moment of time, and at that time, you're just like, what is going on? We don't know. And then so I went and filed it, and it was fine. And the next day, I was like having to walk around because it started to finally open up the city again a little bit. So like a week later, and almost a week, because we hadn't found we hadn't found the brother yet. That was later that night, actually. And I was walking over toward the center, over Copley, and the light changed, and like the city was silent, and then the light changed, and someone honked on the horn. It was like, let's go! And I was like, we're back. Yes, we're back. So Boston became Boston again slowly, which was great, right? I mean, insert your favorite city there, right? That's what that was. So it's kind of compartmentalizing. My friends will tell you that probably changed me a little bit as a human, to having to like put like the fear aside and report. But then I hit on something again when I was in the NBA bubble. So I don't know if you guys know a lot about the NBA bubble, but we were basically at Disneyland Worldwide, and like could not leave. Like, you're there for 3 months, and that's that. So, and remember where we were in the pandemic, right? Like, we didn't know a lot. So we basically all just uprooted our lives and just plopped us down in there, and we didn't know how it was going to go. So it's really about compartmentalizing at that point.
Thank you.
No, absolutely.
Do we have any other questions? Go ahead, sorry.
I know you mentioned that you got sociology here, and then there's the master's for production. Did at any point you question what career you wanted to go into? And if you did, kind of how did you look into that to figure out what you're now doing?
I didn't question the communications part of it. I didn't question that. I got a taste early on, actually in high school. Again, I would play in the girls' varsity basketball game, and then I'd run out and do color commentary for the boys. So that I was doing that at the age of 16 on local cable in Maine. So I knew that I wanted to do that. I just questioned whether or not I wanted it to be sports or news or what. That one I had a hard time remembering at first. But now I know that I'm in the right place. Like, I think it was definitely the right move. I just knew that I wanted to do something where I didn't sit in a cube all day. And I knew I wanted to do something that I learned something new every single day. And no 2 days are the same, which is really kind of cool.
I'm looking at a paper on artificial intelligence and seeing how it's affecting students right now.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering if you run into it or different departments at ESPN.
Yes.
Do it and use it.
We absolutely are working on it right now to understand, so what's super important to us is the accuracy, right? Like I talked about it earlier, only as good as your last report. How do I know that whatever I'm reading is an actual quote from LeBron. I don't know that it is. There are a lot of dupe accounts. One of the things that's super interesting is that you'll see like Woj or Adrian Wojnarowski and Adam Schefter and Jeff Passan, like our newsbreakers. There's a lot of fake accounts for them, right? So with that for us, it's kind of very similar in treating it like that. It's like the extra verification to make sure this is actually correct. So we're treating AI things very similar to that. So it's about double confirming everything. And we do have a two-pronged process in confirming reports. So thankfully, that's already in place. So for us, it's really being diligent and making sure we follow standard procedure. That's a great question because it's coming, right? It's coming.
Anything else? I have a question as a non-Wheaton student. So, and I don't know where this question will end up going. Do you have any memories of the Wheaton Woods? Because I know we have the Wheaton Woods here. Yes? No?
I don't think
Not for public consumption?
I don't know what this is.
Oh, the Wheaton Woods?
You mean the trail?
Yeah, I see people emerge out of the woods and I'm like, where did that person come from?
We had one year where we cross-trained during preseason, and it was like, this was obviously well before the NCAA like really cracked down on like how many sessions we have during preseason. And we would do a 6 a.m. We had 4 sessions. So it'd be 6 a.m. run through there, and then like a 10 o'clock practice, and then a 2:30 or 3 o'clock scrimmage, and then 4 workouts at the end. So that would be my only memory of that. I mean, obviously this is well before the NCAA was like, yes, we can't do that many sessions anymore, so.
Does anyone have anything else? Andrew, oh, in the back.
You keep mentioning Maine, and I'm just curious, where are you from in Maine, and where did you go to high school?
Okay, I am from a little tiny town called Palmyra. It is between Bangor and Waterville. I went to the Conus.
Oh, my mom works there.
Oh! Then we will talk because my mom just retired.
Andrew, do you have anything else that you'd like to add before we let you go?
No, I hope that you guys are able to come to more of these if you haven't. So moms have so much to offer. Ask questions, really dig into the things that you love. I think that hopefully you guys get a lot of opportunity to talk to people who have come from here to do what you want to do.
Well, we're so happy to have you here. What has changed the most since you've been there last? What surprised you most about the campus?
Well, I love that. I honestly, I kind of feel like that just that would have been a game changer when we were here. We just didn't have her. I'm trying to think what else. Like I really walked into this room and it was kind of this eerie feeling because this was the room I was in. I think I mentioned to you that when 9/11 happened, I was in a class in this room. So yeah, how old I am. And as when Brooke was talking earlier, I was thinking, all of that just means I'm really old. So I love, and Brooke and I were talking earlier too, that what I love about Wheaton is it's classic. It's classic upper campus. And I like the fact that upper campus has not changed. While we're still growing around, this remains steadfast.
Well, thank you for coming. Are you open to questions if they want to talk